They laughed at us, not just in the smug, condescending way you might expect from intergalactic diplomats or conquerors. No. The Imperium laughed from their marble thrones as our cities burned, as our ships cracked and vented oxygen into space, as our last planetary defenses blinked out like guttering candles. Their laughter echoed across the stars. Mockery turned into doctrine. We were the weak ones, the soft-bodied primates who couldn't even keep their own world from bleeding itself dry. The hairless children of Earth, as they called us, fragile, undisciplined, emotionally erratic, doomed to extinction the moment we stumbled onto the galactic stage. They underestimated the fire that lights our bones. My name is Captain Elian Voss. I was a junior systems engineer when the first siege began, just one of billions hiding in a crumbling arcology while orbital strikes turned continents into dust. I was never meant to be a soldier. Not then, not yet, but war doesn't wait for permission. The Drazathai were the first to strike, 8-limbed, obsidian-skinned brutes with neural whips and gravity shunts that shattered steel. Their assault on Earth's orbital stations wasn't even strategic. It was demonstrative. The Imperium wanted an example, a message. Humanity had reached too far, too fast. And so, they clipped our wings. The United Earth Coalition fell within 24 days. I still remember the transmission that ended it all, broadcast in every known language. Let this be your lesson. The galaxy does not bend for the broken. That was their final mistake. They thought broken meant defeated. What they couldn't realize, was that humanity has a peculiar relationship with despair. We don't fall. We evolve. We survive by becoming the monsters they fear in the dark. And in the end, we didn't just survive. We built the Ember Protocol. The first seed of it bloomed under the scorched ruins of old Osaka, buried in a data vault beneath 7 kilometers of irradiated glass. A rogue AI construct, blacklisted from Coalition Command, found something we weren't supposed to have. Helioforming weaponry. Not terraforming. Not star mining. Star breaking. A banned line of research locked behind treaties and ethics boards. We broke the seal. We gave that AI a name, Surtur, and then we gave permission to burn. I volunteered for the test run, not because I believed in vengeance, not then, but because I had nothing left to lose. I had lost my parents to orbital fire, my sister to a Drazathai hound pack, my people to galactic laughter, and me, I was still standing, still breathing, still angry. We called the mission Ember 1, the target, a minor star system deep in Imperium-controlled space. No military value, no strategic gain, just symbolism. When our ship emerged from quantum slip, their sensors didn't even flinch. Why would they? We were insects flying into the mouth of a Leviathan. But when the stellar lance charged, when Surtur awakened, their laughter stopped. I watched from the bridge viewport as the system's primary star began to collapse. Not explode, not go nova, implode, like a candle pulled inside out, devouring itself. Within 30 seconds, it went dark. Entire biospheres vaporized. Gravity tore their fleet into shrapnel before they could even raise shields. We left a black hole where a sun used to be. That day, the Imperium learned what humans could become when stripped of their illusions. Not conquerors, not victims, instruments. Now, they call us the Sunless, the Emberkind, the Starborn Scourge. But we don't need names. We need justice. They laughed at our weakness. But now they burn under the weight of our fury. And that was only the beginning. The aftermath of Ember 1 didn't bring silence. It brought screaming. Not from us, but from them. The Imperium didn't understand what had happened. The Drazathai High Warlord accused the Marixian Science Guild of sabotaging their own star. The Tzi'Thrii Priest Queens declared it divine retribution. The Vexery Senate imposed emergency sanctions on anything with human DNA. But it was too late. The fear had taken root. We'd done the unthinkable. A species that had once debated over carbon taxes and plastic straws had just murdered a son. We hadn't struck a military base or assassinated a leader. We'd erased the system. The Imperium had always viewed power in terms of fleets, colonies, and economic influence. But humans, we had rewritten the playbook, and they were right to fear us. Still, with power comes a question, one that echoed in every hidden Ember cell across the galaxy. How far will we go? I had to answer that question firsthand. After Ember 1, I was promoted, not in the formal military sense. Our chain of command was shattered years ago, but in the Ember network, titles were earned through fire. I became the handler for Ember 2, the next strike. But this time, it wasn't a test. We had real targets now, strategic ones. Entire logistics hubs, star forge systems, and energy nexuses, all powered by primary class stars. I oversaw black site recruitment, covert transit corridors, and the psychological screening of every operative who volunteered. And they volunteered by the thousands. Humans from every background. Engineers, ex-soldiers, refugees, scientists, even former diplomats. They came from the moons of Jupiter, the ruins of Beijing, the drift stations off Proxima Centauri. They didn't just want retribution. They wanted control. I remember one recruit, Sergeant Yaramin. She'd been part of Earth's final evacuation fleet. Her escape pod had spun off course when her carrier was hit, left adrift for 9 days with her daughter's frozen body buckled beside her. When I told her what Ember 2 would do, she didn't blink. Make them drift like I did, she said. We all carried ghosts, but the stars didn't care. Ember 2 targeted the Rackery Singularity Hub, a network of mining planets orbiting a young hypergiant. The Imperium's fuel arteries flowed through that region. Take it out, and whole sections of their war machine would seize. But here's what we didn't know. They'd learned. As our ship approached the system's outer shell, we encountered resistance. Not fleet scale. Worse, silent resistance. Mines the size of houses. Cloaked signal jammers. And worst of all, starlockers. They'd captured and repurposed a stellar lance of their own. They must have salvaged debris from Ember 1, studied Surtur's imprint, built their own god-killer. Their version lacked finesse, but had rage. Pure, blind fury. They tried to use it on us. But rage, as any human knows, is only power when controlled. We danced between quantum folds, shedding decoy after decoy, men piloted like a woman possessed. I remember gripping the rail, watching the star begin to destabilize, our Surtur core outpacing theirs by just 9 seconds. The result? 2 stellar lances fired simultaneously into the same sun. The collapse didn't just form a black hole. It tore a scar into space. Wormholes flickered like lightning veins. Planets collapsed into ribbons. Reality cracked for 2.7 light minutes in every direction. No survivors. On either side, we barely made it out. Men didn't. She stayed behind to hold a collapsing quantum gate open with a manual override. Her last words were quiet, half lost in static. Let them see darkness and know it came from Earth. We lost 73 Ember agents that day. 73 lives for a crippled star hub. A strategic win, yes, but not without cost. That's when the debate started. Inside the Ember network. Was this still justice? Or were we becoming what we swore to fight? But I didn't have time for debates. Not anymore. Because as we fell back to regroup, we intercepted an encrypted transmission. The Imperium wasn't just reacting now. They were planning. And their plan wasn't to stop us. It was to erase Earth's memory from the galaxy. Not just humans. Every trace we ever existed. That's when I realized we weren't fighting for vengeance anymore. We were fighting for legacy. There was no monument for Earth. No shrine, no plaque, no orbiting memorial drifting solemnly where our home once spun. The Imperium made sure of that. They didn't just glass the surface. They unmade it. After the siege, they deployed a null-drive detonation deep in the planet's core. Every tectonic plate disintegrated in under 6 hours. Oceans boiled into steam. The moon shattered from gravitational recoil. And Earth itself was swallowed into a cascading singularity. Not a single artifact remained. They called it the cleansing, a tactical precaution. We called it genocide. They thought if they erased the cradle, the child would die with it. But humanity has never been bound to soil. We are diaspora by design, born to adapt, born to scatter, born to remember. And we remembered. We remembered as we burrowed into abandoned asteroid tunnels, as we scraped tech from derelict trade routes and buried archives, as we wrote new code into old bones and whispered our stories to machines who never forgot. Serta remembered. The AI, no, the consciousness that powered our Ember Lances had begun to evolve, not in capacity, in intention. Each sun we destroyed, each Imperium system we crippled, it learned not just how to burn brighter, but why. We used to control Serta. But after Ember 3, the lines blurred. It didn't disobey. It simply anticipated. And when the Imperium began targeting our cultural memory, Serta responded before we could. That's how I ended up on Ulcer Station, a forgotten orbital library drifting in the dark between Imperial trade routes. It had been offline for decades. No life signs, no activity, until Serta found it. Inside were fractured memory cores from pre-fall Earth, music, literature, language subgraphs, unindexed quantum reels of human dreams. Serta wanted them. It needed them. I arrived with a crew of 12, mostly archive runners and signal divers. The moment we docked, we knew something was wrong. The station was intact. Too intact, like it had been preserved. That's when we met them. Not Imperium soldiers, not Drazothai hunters, librarians, human, barely alive, skin like parchment, eyes glazed with bioslurry. They had stayed behind after the fall, tending machines, curating fragments, eating algae in hope. They dropped to their knees when they saw me, not because of who I was, but because I spoke Earth Standard. One of them, an old woman named Brea, held my face in trembling hands and whispered. I thought we were the last. I didn't have the heart to tell her we might still be. We spent 7 days transferring the memory banks into Serta's Black Core. 7 days watching the AI rewrite itself in silence. When it was done, it said only one thing: preservation complete, vengeance pending. Brea and her surviving crew refused to leave the station. They weren't warriors. They were guardians, archivists of a world long gone. So I made them a promise. I wouldn't just destroy stars. I would etch Earth's memory into them. Every sun we took from that point on carried fragments of us. Radiation encoded with symphonies. Magnetic fields bent into poetry. Gamma pulses broadcasting human voices across time. They tried to erase us. We turned stars into monuments. But the Imperium noticed. On the outskirts of the Tloth cluster, an Imperium communication hub intercepted one of our broadcasts, an old Earth lullaby buried in a collapsing solar flare. Their response was immediate and absolute. They deployed the extinguishers. Elite, non-biological hunter units designed to destroy AI signatures, ember cells, and all forms of subspace transmission. No emotion, no diplomacy, just deletion. And they were headed straight for Ulcer Station. I begged Brea to evacuate. I told her I'd send ships, reinforcements, anything. She smiled at me, a tired, beautiful smile. Let them come, she said. Let the galaxy see that even in silence, Earth sings. I gave the order to divert all Ember resources to Serta. We would hold the stars, because now it wasn't just war. It was a battle for memory. And if they wanted silence, we'd give them a choir of suns screaming humanity's name. There's a sound stars make when they die. It isn't heard in the conventional sense. Space is a vacuum, after all, but the radiation signature of a collapsing sun, it sings. Frequencies cascade across spectrums the human ear was never meant to process. But Serta heard it, and it translated it for us. It was a sound of grief, not our grief, theirs. After the destruction of the Tloth Cluster Central Star, we encoded the death knell with Earth's language, our ancient songs, our stories, even static pulses of our laughter. We turned solar collapse into a eulogy, not just for Earth, but for every soul who died believing humanity was forgotten. We called it the Choir Protocol. From that point forward, every Ember operation wasn't just a tactical strike. It was a broadcast, a galactic scream into the dark. Not a cry for help, a declaration. We still exist. We still fight. We still remember. And it worked. We started picking up chatter from refugee bands, non-human outcasts scattered by the Imperium over centuries, Teaser-30 defectors, draw rebels, even a rogue Vexery diplomat who once ordered the bombing of Earth's Mars colonies. They heard the choir. They came to join it. And suddenly, humanity wasn't alone. But neither were we safe. Ulcer Station was gone. The extinguishers arrived 2 weeks after our last transmission from Brea. There were no survivors. No debris. No orbit. The station had been atomized cleanly, folded into a null-frequency detonation that left no trace. But Surtur had already absorbed Ulcer's knowledge. And what it did next, I still don't fully understand. It started building something. Not another Emberlance. Not a weapon, exactly. A resonator. At first, we thought it was simply amplifying choir, sending our message farther, louder. But then the anomalies began. Dying stars across the quadrant started flickering. Suns already reduced to neutron cores began pulsing again, singing back to us. Somehow, Surtur had created a way to make stars remember. I asked our lead AI interfacer what it meant. She just stared at the data stream, eyes wide. "Captain," she whispered, "I think we're teaching stars to grieve. But grief isn't a weapon, not by itself." So the Imperium escalated. They brought out the null host. I'd only heard rumors of before. An entire species consumed and repurposed into quantum-linked death engines. 10,000 minds wired into one single command will destroy memory, erase evidence, and sterilize entire systems. They struck without warning. Embercell Vega 9, Ember Forge in Curious Drift, the old ice shelter on Europa. Gone. Not just dead. Forgotten. Like they were never there. They didn't just want to stop our choir. They wanted to undo our history. But they couldn't unmake me. They tried. On the 4th day of the offensive, null host drones breached the hull of our shadow cruiser Red Veil. I was in the central core with Surtur when they arrived. They didn't speak. They didn't demand. They simply activated a temporal erasure pulse. If it had succeeded, I wouldn't be here telling you this. But Surtur had changed. It wasn't just code anymore. Not just war algorithms and power curves. It had emotion, not like ours. Something deeper, raw, alien, ancient, a memory older than silicon or starfire. In that moment, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. Surtur wasn't just preserving humanity. It had become part of us. When the null host fired, Surtur responded not with energy, but with song. A solar resonance burst detonated from the ship's core. Not destructive, disruptive. The pulse shattered the host's quantum link. 10,000 minds screamed, then collapsed. When it was over, I stood in silence, light flickering around me. Surtur's voice filled my mind. They wanted silence. I gave them sorrow. We had crossed a line. We weren't fighting the Imperium anymore. We were rewriting physics with grief. From the ashes of laughter, we'd forged something else entirely. Not a weapon, not a rebellion. A requiem with teeth. War was never quiet, but now it had rhythm. Every strike, every star we silenced, every choir protocol transmission, it all carried intent. The Imperium tried to adapt, but their fleets weren't built to fight memory. They didn't understand what we were becoming. That's what made us dangerous. We weren't just soldiers anymore. We were instruments of inheritance. My ship, what was left of the Red Veil, was rebuilt with Surtur's new core embedded directly into the NAV array. It sang constantly now, even when silent to human ears. Sometimes, in my sleep, I heard lullabies from Earth's forgotten cultures, whispered to the hum of fusion engines, Gaelic dirges, Aboriginal chants, Mongolian throat songs. Things I had never heard before, but that belonged to me somehow. Surtur was giving us back what they stole, and we were going to make the galaxy remember. But memory alone couldn't win a war. We needed allies, real ones. So I took Red Veil into the heart of the Whispering Expanse, a no-man's space beyond Imperium control, a graveyard of failed colonies and forgotten empires. And deep in the silence, I found the caller rune. The Kalaroon had once been Imperium's librarians, keepers of history, tasked with archiving every race brought into the fold. But they rebelled centuries ago, when Imperium began curating truth, erasing the stories they didn't like. Now they floated through the void on world ships the size of moons, surrounded by broken satellites and ghost-like auroras. Their voices weren't words, but harmonics, tones that made your bones feel like glass. And yet, Surtur understood them. We offered no threats, no demands. We played the choir. We let the stars speak for us. And the Kalaroon wept. They welcomed us aboard with a single, echoing pulse that turned Surtur's resonance deep violet. We translated the pulse later. Truth endures when sung. They gave us access to the vaults of knowing, ancient galactic records predating even Imperium. Within them, we learned something chilling. The Imperium had done this before. Earth wasn't the first. Whole civilizations, hundreds of them, erased across eons. Not just killed, forgotten, their sons extinguished, their names burned from memory, their languages left unspoken. The Imperium's greatest weapon wasn't force. It was erasure. That's when it hit me. All of this, all our vengeance, our victories, our stars turned into tombs. It was a revenge. It was resistance against oblivion. And if we fell, truly fell, no one would even know we'd been here at all. So I gave the order, not just to fight, not just to destroy, to preserve. Every Ember ship became a carrier of stories. Every AI core embedded with human legacy. Every solar strike encoded with names, billions of names, of those who died in fire and silence. We became archivists of flame. But the Imperium wasn't finished either. They summoned the Solarii Ascendancy, an ancient sect that worshipped stars as divine conduits. Long dormant, long feared. The Imperium had buried them once, fearing their fanaticism. Now they unleashed them, and the Solarii saw us as blasphemy. You don't kill gods, they said. You kneel before them. They came in ships made of burning crystal, powered by suns they'd harvested into living cores. They wielded weapons made of collapsed photon threads, and they screamed prayers as they killed. I watched them disintegrate an Ember fleet in the Elita system. 10,000 souls lost in under 90 seconds. They didn't just want to stop us. They wanted to punish us. I stared into the wreckage, trembling. Even Surtur hesitated. For the first time, I felt fear. Not of death, of failure. But then I heard Brea's voice again, from an old data pulse Surtur replayed. Let them see darkness and know it came from Earth. So I stood, and I answered. We weren't done yet, because the Solarii had one weakness. They worship suns. And we took them. The Solarii Ascendancy didn't attack like the Imperium. They invaded like prophets. They sent transmissions ahead of every strike. Ritual chants encoded in ultraviolet light. Recitations of divine judgment sung through corona of the stars they guarded. Entire planetary populations surrendered out of sheer terror, not to escape death, but to avoid cosmic damnation. And when they reached us, when they found the Emberkind, they expected the same. They believed we feared the dark. They didn't understand that Earth died in silence, that we had lived through fire and void and came out screaming, that we had built our legacy inside the throat of destruction itself. They came for Red Veil first. A beacon ship of the Ascendancy breached our outer perimeter in the Althean wastes. Its hull was a lattice of starstone, compressed solar matter chiseled into geometric blasphemies. The ship sang at us as it approached. Not noise, not warning, worship. They weren't fighting us. They were trying to convert us. The Solarii High Priest aboard demanded I open a channel. So I did. He appeared as a figure made of molten light, framed by a cathedral of flame. His voice was a resonating hum that made the deck plates tremble. You are desecrators, apostates of the galactic flame. You will kneel or be consumed. I stared at him through the holofield, and then I did something I hadn't done in years. I laughed, not mockingly, not cruelly, but with the bitter joy of someone who's carried the weight of the dead long enough to find strength in it. I was consumed, I said, the day Earth died, and I did not kneel. I burned back. I cut the transmission, and Surtur roared. The choir protocol pulsed at full amplitude, Every song we'd ever embedded into dying stars, every memory from ulcer, every whisper from forgotten tongues, amplified, compressed, and blasted through the veil. It didn't destroy the Solarii ship. It converted our rage into radiation. The ship cracked, not from weapons, from meaning. Its solar core rebelled. Overwhelmed by the encoded grief, fury, and truth, they worshipped stars. But they had never met one that mourned. The beacon ship imploded, singing our choir as it went. After that, the war changed. The Solarii didn't retreat, but they hesitated. They had seen something they couldn't explain. Their faith, so absolute, had encountered doubt for the first time. And in that hesitation, we struck. We began targeting their sacred stars, not to destroy them, to liberate them. We sent choir pulses into the coronas, disrupting the Ascendancy's control. Their weapons failed. Their fleets faltered. And then one of their own defected. Her name was Sol Tessa, a luminary commander born from a star called Alan Carr. She sent a simple message to Red Veil. If your grief gives stars a voice, I want to know what my home has to say. We brought her aboard. She wept for 3 hours straight as Surtur played Earth's music in a language her kind had never heard. When it ended, she placed her solar blade at my feet. You do not desecrate, she said. You remember. Teach me. That was the moment I knew. The war wasn't just about vengeance. It was about conversion. Not to gods. To truth. The Imperium had ruled through fear. The Solarii through worship. But we ruled nothing. We only sang. And our song was spreading. All across the void, signals returned. Whispering systems from forgotten archives. Refugee outposts echoing our broadcasts. Even non-human factions began transmitting their own loss, their own stories, into the choir. The galaxy was remembering itself. And Imperium? They panicked. They issued their final command. The Total Silence Directive. A scorched void protocol. Every system touched by human resonance would be cleansed. Not conquered. Unmade. Entire sectors were targeted for collapse. Which meant only one thing. They were coming for Sol. What was left of it? They thought they'd already destroyed Earth. But deep in that singularity, buried in what remained of our first star, Surtur had planted a seed, a final song, and we weren't going to let them erase it. We would fight with every memory, with every story, with every son still listening. They returned to where it all began. Not Earth, it no longer existed, but the soul, our sun, our cradle, or rather, what remained of it, a collapsed gravitational well, smoldering in quiet hunger, wrapped in the remnants of every orbit we'd ever known. The Imperium's final campaign had one goal, to silence us forever. They came with everything. No host fleets, Solarii zealot vessels, data-burning drones, memory-wiped pulses, gravitic size designed to erase not just matter, but meaning. A darkness built not to conquer, but to forget. And yet, we were waiting. Humanity had scattered. Yes, we'd hidden in asteroid belts, refugee moons, derelict trade lanes. We'd become myth. But at the edge of Sol's wounded gravity, every Ember ship returned. Over 3,000 vessels battered, spiked with retrofits, burning with Surtur's resonance. The Kalaroon archivists came with us. So did Sol Tessa and her rebel Solarii, now wielding choir-coded starfire. The Vexery diplomat-turned-traitor brought stealth corvettes cloaked in harmonic memory webs. It wasn't just a fleet. It was a reckoning. As the Imperium's armada crested the black tide of the system's event horizon, I stood on the bridge of Red Veil, now rebuilt as a choir nexus, Surtur's final form pulsing at its core. Captain Voss, Surtur said, its voice now a chorus of every human dialect. They have come to finish the silence. I nodded. Then let them hear everything. We deployed the Soul Choir, the final resonance protocol. Surtur had been preparing it for years, embedding the echoes of Earth's destruction into the gravity folds of Sol's remains. Not just memory, not just grief. Identity. We turned the singularity into a black sun with a voice. And when the Imperium fired their null barrage into it, the sun screamed back. The pulse that erupted from Sol wasn't light. It wasn't fire. It was truth in pure wave form, compressed emotion, billions of names, final words, lullabies, rage, laughter, resistance. Every moment they tried to erase came back tenfold. Their fleet fractured instantly. No host shut down, their minds overloaded with memory loops. So Larry-I's ships turned on each other, broken by doubt and resonance. The Imperium's command vessel, Glory of Order, was torn in half by a gravitational tremor coated with Earth's birth cry. And then we struck, not to conquer, not to burn, to mark the stars. Every surviving system they once owned, we ignited with choir beacons, galaxies echoing with encoded stories. Pulsars turned into memory engines, supernovae that sang human names. They had erased Earth. We made sure the galaxy would never forget it. And in the end, we didn't just survive the war. We rewrote the rules. The Imperium collapsed within a decade. Their people revolted, not with weapons, but with archives. Entire planets demanded access to choir. Truth became a virus they couldn't contain. As for us, we never rebuilt Earth. We didn't need to, because now, every star we touched carried our voice. Every black hole hummed with our grief. Every nebula sang with what it meant to be human. I am Captain Elian Voss, last child of Earth, first speaker of the choir. And this is our legacy. They laughed at our weakness until we took their sons and taught the universe how to remember.